Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach. And I see individuals online. I work with individuals in groups, and I have a website and also a workshop coming up. But this particular video is entitled Staying on Task Even When Experiencing Discomfort. Jenny Brown lists in her book, Growing Yourself Up, the 7 characteristics of a mature or more self-differentiated inner adult. And this is number 2. You can watch my other video on the first one, and I'm going to explain and talk about all 7. They're all very important. I think for those who are in recovery, that this process of staying on task is a way for us to not abandon the inner child. If we as the adult stay on task, we then are protecting the inner the inner child, and we're also caring for them and not abandoning them. Because often when we meet resistance in relationships or systems, we tend to abandon ourselves and abandon the inner child and continue to operate in the system in a status quo way, and no changes are made. The inner child becomes disappointed and hurt and abandoned, and we as an adult feel more cowardice or worthless or shame. And so it's very important that we learn to stay on task even when we experience discomfort. Peter Senge, in his book, The Fifth Discipline, in which he applies systems thinking to corporations, businesses, and organizations. It's an excellent book. He's kind of the creator of the learning organization used by a lot of corporations to help them break out of their quick fix thinking and start using systems thinking, which is a more long-term approach, which actually provides more change and actually allows change to happen. Quick fixes often don't create change, but only for a moment. And he writes, resistance is a response by the system trying to maintain the implicit system goal, or the implicit system belief, or the implicit system role, or the implicit system addiction, or the implicit system dysfunction. Because it wants to maintain that dysfunction. And so if you begin to operate differently, it's going to resist you. The system, the family, the church, workplace, whatever system we're in is going to resist us. And so if we understand that there is this resistance, then it's very important that we are able to sustain ourselves through that resistance and find a new setting and a reset on the other side of us functioning in the system or in the relationship or in the marriage. So again, it's staying on task when experiencing discomfort. Oftentimes, those of us, me included, for many, many, many years, we are used to folding at the first sign of resistance when changing our role in the system. When we want something to change for us, we then present that change to the system, we get resistance, and then we fold. And the status quo, the equilibrium, the homeostasis continues. And then we feel discouraged, upset, and much like we have failed and hopeless, there is no use. Because if the system won't accept the new me, then why even try? Well, that's a quick fix or a very linear way of looking at change. If we look at change in a systems way, we can see the value in persistence or in courage or in consistency that, like Brene Brown talks about in her books when we're self-differentiating. And Brene Brown is another Marie Bowen Family Systems author. and so is Jenny Brown, Andrea Shera, Harriet Lerner. Those are good books for you to see change in a systems way rather than just a cause and effect way, which oftentimes will fail. So when we are on task, we want to learn to stay in place regardless of what the system is doing, and stay out of the emotional glue that's happening, and resist the emotional glue and the pull and the enmeshment or the rejection. I had a client I was working with yesterday, and she remembered some of my words, and she said she was feeling so much better because she always kind of feared rejection. She's a very good professional, wonderful person, a beautiful woman, and she feels so insecure when she feels rejected by a boss or a coworker or someone like that. And she was saying, well, Jerry, as you say, when I sense that rejection, I realize it really can't hurt me. It doesn't make my pants fall down. And she used another phrase too. I can't remember what it was. But right, it doesn't make my pants fall down. Why am I worried about their rejection? And so we learn those tools to be able to stay engaged with our new change. And so we want to learn to stay in place if we're trying to make a change in the system. And I'll give you an example of this at the end of the video here. We want to learn to stay in place. Stand your ground. Make your change intentional versus reactive. If we are reacting, then we're probably not going to affect a change. No matter, I don't care if we yell and scream or whatever we do, it won't affect a change. It will keep things the same. If we are intentional, then we can really make a change in our functioning in the system. And again, our issues, and we're going to be triggered by others when we begin to make a change, and that's acceptable. That should be expected. I'm sorry, not expected. And how can we strategically deal with that? Increase your ability to hang in there and to tolerate this discomfort. The discomfort is the system's feelings. So when we begin to make a change, Dad, I wish you would not tell me that I'm stupid. That's very rude and I don't like that. And he said, well, you've always been stupid. I don't know what's wrong with you. Now I start to feel the system's feelings of shame. I'm not really stupid. I don't know what I'm not even sure Dad really even thinks I'm stupid. He's just using that as a way to keep the system in a status quo equilibrium, to continue the same dysfunction. And so when I have that system's feeling of shame, which is what it is, if I do something shameful, then I might feel shame. That's a true feeling. If he says I'm stupid, then I start to feel shame, and that comes from the relationship system. It's okay to ignore systems feelings. Don't ignore your true feelings, but it's okay to ignore systems feelings. And a lot of people don't know what feelings to ignore and what feelings to feel and let go of. Practice persevering and exercising your courage. Don't wait for it to happen, but to make it happen. And I've always said anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. So even poor attempts at self-differentiation is better than reactive attempts at making a change. Now that's important. Poor attempts at self-differentiation and intentional work is better than reactive interventions that we try. Don't wait for it to happen. Many times we will wait, well, I'll do it when the system will accept me. I'll do it when Dad's not going to shame me. I'll do it. Well, you'll be waiting for decades, if forever, for that to change. And it probably won't. So we're learning to change us while accepting that the system is not going to change. And when we do that, when we change us, while accepting the system is not going to change, we actually end up changing the system. Not directly, but indirectly, because we're bringing more calmness and more a sense of self to the system, which is what it needs and what it lacks. So staying on task. Trying something new always involves this characteristic. Use intention versus passion or systems feelings to drive you to be a true self in a system. Use an intentional. You will be more calm, will be less reactive. Don't be intense, but work, act, and feel calmer. Work on feeling calmer and being calmer rather than intense when we're making changes in a relationship, a marriage, a family, workplace. Avoid giving in because you'll lose self at that point. Then we become more our pseudo-self, which is a self based on what others want, desire, and need you to be. That's a pseudo-self, and many of us have learned that growing up. An intense blow-up becomes reactive and confrontational, which does nothing for a system, only to make it worse or more, or tightens the relationship even more and tightens the dysfunction. Intentional ignoring of the system's feelings. Just like the client who talked to me who's in business, who's in New York City, and she realizes that I can ignore this feeling of rejection. This is a systems feeling from growing up from my parents who were very rejecting, and now I see rejection around every bush. And I can ignore that feeling. I don't have to give it life. I don't have to feed it. I can ignore that and work to ignore it. Now you're saying, well, Jerry, is that easy? No, it's not easy. Of course not. But any work at doing that will provide a lot of benefit, even if it's to a small degree, because you're working in the right direction and it will begin to build on itself. Let me give you a brief example at the end of this video here. One of the first self-differentiation attempts that I tried was, I was a pastor at the time. I don't think I was a bishop. I think I was a pastor at the time. My father had passed away. And at our family, we all gathered around for family meals. And everyone looked to me to give the grace or pray for the meal before we started. And I began to notice that's kind of a pattern. Everybody's just expecting that of me. And, I really don't want to do that. This is my family. I'm not the family pastor. I'm Jerry in the family. I don't want to be the pastor here. I'm the pastor everywhere else. I would like the freedom to do what I would like to do, and I don't really want to do this. And I don't want to do it out of guilt or out of shame or out of they'll be disappointed or why can't I just do it? It's no big deal. I have all those kinds of voices going on, which are systems voices and systems feelings. They're not my true feelings. My true feelings are, I don't want to do this. I like to do this by choice, not because this is your role. And so I began to talk to my mom prior to a Thanksgiving dinner. I can't remember if it was Thanksgiving, Christmas, or when it was. We were all gathering. And like 3 weeks before, I'm saying, hey, Mom, I want to let you know that I just would rather not give the family prayer. I think some other people could do that. She totally ignored what I said. She wasn't even hearing me. So then I thought, well, I better talk to her again about it. So I did. Alerted her again. Mom, hey, I just want you to know that I'm, because last time she didn't even hardly respond. So I think she was saying, it doesn't matter what you want, Jerry. You will be doing it when we get to the meal. So I thought I better talk to her again. And so I did. And she said, I understand. And then ignored me. And I think I might have done it one more time. In fact, I finally said, Mom, if I'm asked to do it, I probably will defer. So I just want you to know that. Again, kind of blank, ignoring it. Doesn't matter. Jerry, this is your role. You need to do this. So then we get to the family meal. Then we're right before we're supposed to eat. Everybody looks at me. Mom looks at me and said, Jerry, could you return thanks or could you give a prayer for the meal? I prepared for that because I thought that was going to happen. I had lots of anxiety, lots of feelings of shame, didn't know what was going to happen or if people would not like me, or here was my grieving mom having lost my dad and I'm treating her badly when I'm just wanting to do what I would like to do. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, including my mother. But at that point, I had prepared intentionally to stay the task, no matter how discomforting it was, and simply say, well, as I had shared with you, Mom, I think I would rather not be the one who gives the prayer for the meal. And then stayed quiet. That was the most difficult quietness I had felt probably in my life. I didn't know what was going to happen. Was my brother going to blow up? Was he going to be mad? Was he going to, why are you treating Mom so badly? Why can't you just do this simple little prayer? You're a pastor. Why can't you do this? So again, it's why can't you do your role, Jerry? What's wrong with you? And so I continued to stay quiet for this pregnant moment that felt like hours. And then finally, Mom decided to go ahead and pray herself. And so there was a great deal of anxiety, and then when Mom prayed, the anxiety came down, and there was calmness. And I felt, having watched the family later, that it provided an awful lot of relief and less anxiety for the family, in that I had done that with calmness, though I was still feeling anxious and worried, but I persevered through it, staying calm, or at least acting calm. And I wasn't blaming anybody. I didn't say, well, Mom, I told you that I wasn't going to do this. What's wrong with you? I don't need to shame her, or this is just my I position, self-differentiation, no one else's responsibility. I'm not blaming the family for putting me in this role. I'm just deciding this is what I would like to do. And do it in a calm way and an adult way. And actually, I think the family was never the same. In a positive way. Now, not all circumstances like that work out well. We have to practice that. Sometimes there'll be greater resistance. And I understand that. And in other videos, I've talked about the 3 stages of resistance that we have to go through before the system resets with a new you and a new less anxiety. So, I wanted to bring this to you today and give you an example. I hope that this has been a help to you. I have a workshop coming up in a couple of months, and I hope you'll join the workshop. I have coupons for people who are site members on my website. You can give me a call if you'd like to work with me. I'd be happy to do that. And thank you for watching. Have a great day.